Always learning and growing. Attracting the right people and keeping your vision in focus every day. This is the Brian Covey Show.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Brian Covey Show. So I'm super excited about today's guest, Neel. You're going to hear about him in a moment, but we had to, as 2020 has done, adjust, adapt, and execute. The last time that we had scheduled it, if you guys tuned in, we had to reschedule for today. So I'm sure it's going to be worth it. You actually probably are coming off month end for many of our friends in the mortgage business, and you're probably coming up for air for a deep breath. And so today is going to be fantastic. And so I'm going to introduce Neel in a minute, but I want to remind you guys on our podcast, we've had several great guests you guys recommended, from Barry Habib. We had Dave Savage. Last week we had Steve Sims, which was fantastic. So make sure you go in there, like, subscribe, leave some comments. I love to hear the guests that connected up with you guys, what messages that you enjoyed, and then also as you recommend other guests we should have. So let's talk about that today. So jumping in with Neel, I've actually never met Neel in person. So it's one of those cool things that if you've been paying attention in 2020, you've been able to connect with people, I believe, like never before. And so Neel's a guy that I have watched from afar and connected with and really seen that he's changing the game, not only from his marketing and his branding skills that he has, but he's really putting a new spin on what it means to be a mortgage originator and a leader in our space. And I think we all could agree, customers shop for their mortgage. They shop for things differently than they did a year ago. So Neel has adapted. He's executing today at a very high level. And he's somebody I respect in the industry. I was like, okay, we got to get Neel on here. I pulled up one of your articles, Neel. You're in Yahoo Finance. That's not an easy spot to get, but I loved as they went through and they were talking about just you're relatable, how you're connecting with your audience and some of those stories that I'm sure we're going to unpack. But welcome, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Yeah, I've been following your stuff for a while as well, and it's cool just to connect with other people who are, all of us are trying to move the industry forward, you know?
Isn't that the truth? Like I found this year, and this comes up almost on every show, is there's so many people that I haven't met, or I've met one time, or we run in similar circles. And this year, I look at it as almost whether you're trying to acquire customers for your business and you're trying to connect with them, or you're just trying to make new connections. And I believe in this power of association, right? Like the people you're around are really going to influence and impact your growth. And
Yep.
I just try to surround myself with guys like yourself, bring people on the show that I can learn and grow from, that I look and go, if I can learn and grow from you, chances are there's other people, and just bringing out their inner greatness. And I mean, I love watching your story. And so I'd love to go back a little bit, because I know we see the polished look and you're in a new office, and I'm sure we'll talk about all that kind of cool stuff we see today. The reality is most people may not know your story of like, how did you get into the business? Where did you start? And what does that journey kind of look like to get you to where you are today?
So I had started in the business about 2002, before the last run up and crash, and just kind of got in right out of college and started doing loans. At that time, it was like a kind of a refi boom. And that's how I kind of got started in the industry. And then I started off, believe it or not, as a processor in 2002, and started learning from the ground up how to package loans, how to present loans. Then got into like a junior underwriting position, and then realized that, hey, I want to be on the sales side, but I learned loans first. So that was actually kind of just by accident. And then just kind of grew from there. We grew, it was me and my brother and one other partner, and we grew our small mortgage brokerage into a pretty large organization. We had about 30 people working with us in Nevada, and multiple offices. And then the crash happened, and, pretty much one by one, all of our programs went away, and everybody quit one by one, and we subleased our huge office out, and it was just me and my brother, one other staff member in the back. We like kept one room, almost like a closet, and we worked out of that for probably 2-3 years, just to regroup, and at that time, basically, nobody wanted to lend because home values were falling, and nobody wanted to buy because they didn't know, there was so much uncertainty with the recession. So It was just a couple of year period where we kind of regrouped. And then from that point on, every year has just been better than the last. We just kind of slowly grew. And then about 2018 or so, late 2018, I started to get kind of burnt out, and also was thinking, tired of doing the same things, and also tired of losing to online, tired of losing to other people who were doing the same thing as me in my market. And I really kind of just fell into the online space. And that's when I started the third kind of facet of my business, which was switching everything from, traditional and old school marketing to online.
Yeah.
And that's where, kind of got me to where I'm at today.
And I love that story and that journey, because a lot of times we don't unpack the chapters that lead up to where we are today. And for those of us that, I was in the business in 2002, and you look back, the rally, the crash, everything that went through, and you remember there were days that I remember like, are we going to have products? Are we going to have money? And your point, home values and foreclosures and short sales, like we had to, in a way, I'd never really dealt with so many deed and lose and short sales than you saw. And Nevada, I was in Florida at the time. So, I remember back, and I'm sure you saw this. It's like you had homes that were like, and communities, new communities, ghost towns. And, it almost, I think for guys, like I listen to your story and I think about, you had several pivots and shifts. Like you had to realize, okay, business is good. Now business is not good. And now I've got to adapt. Where is the business going? Are there any lessons you took from that? Because, I hear this all the time, right? Like, okay, the crash in 2020, we're waiting for this to happen or that to happen or all this. But what were the big lessons you took through maybe those tough years where, we weren't sure what was going to happen and customers weren't flocking to us? Many people couldn't afford to buy and didn't want to buy because they were scared.
Yeah, it's a great lesson to learn, because every time something happens, you, instead of, there's certain people who will complain and kind of sit and wait for things to change. And usually, almost always, there's an opportunity. So
That's right.
I remember this happened. So for example, in the first crisis, the programs went away. So you can complain and worry about that, or you can figure out what programs do we have and what can we sell. And I remember at the time it was government lending. Yeah. And that's what saved us in 2009, 2010, 2011 was the FHA mortgage program, because existing FHA borrowers could refinance through a streamlined program because the government had temporarily reduced rates. And then also anybody who wanted to buy, government lending really saved the housing market, I believe, at that time, and FHA took a huge share of the business. So we just focused on where that was at. There was government lending, there was reverse mortgages. There was definitely ways to prosper. Even in the worst market in the history of mortgages and housing, there was a way to do really well, and you just had to find it. So it's no different than, once I started seeing that, hey, when I meet with agents and referral partners, and when I meet with builders, everybody's saying the same thing. We're all using the same scripts. We're all saying the same thing. I'm the best lender. I have the best products. I have the best service. My rates are amazing. And it's just the same thing, right? And I've noticed it just starting to work less and less. We're becoming commoditized. Online is growing, taking more and more share. With each quarter that goes by, online was growing. And I'm like, what am I going to do about this? And then I see this white space online of like, hey, personal brand, content marketing, not just running ads, but like putting out content. And I was like, whoa, what's that all about? And that's where the huge opportunity exists again now, right?
Well, let's talk about that, because I'm speaking Friday with a group, this Rise Up conference, and it's all about how to build a winning personal brand. And you've done that. It seems like a mystery for some people, but let's unpack that and talk about that a little bit. Is like when you started to it, you said, okay, I kind of fell into it, which I'm with you. I kind of fell into it. I saw an opportunity. I wish I could be the guy that's like, oh, I see this massive opportunity clearly. No, I just knew I needed to do something different. Shift, right? And get on LinkedIn, get on Facebook, get on Instagram, all those things. Yep. And ours was more for recruiting at the time. We wanted to scale out our team, and we recognized, it wasn't very efficient to fly around everywhere in the country and try to add team members. And this remote work from home, little did we know, years later, would just become common practice. But I've noticed everyone that's built a personal brand started somewhere, right? And they started to figure it out a little bit. What were some of those moments or aha moments for you, Neel, as you started to recognize, one, the opportunity, but you're like, I need a personal brand out there. Like, where did you start at that moment?
So I just started seeing other guys, not in the mortgage space, in the business community, putting out content and really saying, hey, this is an important thing. You got to be doing this. If you want to remain relevant, you have to do it. You have to do it. And then finally, something just clicked where it was like, look, I was sitting in an airport, Brian, and I was like waiting for a flight, and it was a Southwest flight, and it was delayed. And when there's a couple delays, like the entire terminal fills up, right? There's just people waiting. And I looked around me, and every single person around me was sitting with their phone.
Yeah.
And they all had their screen open, and just glancing at a couple of screens, it was either YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. And I was like, okay, every single person is just like attached. They're addicted to this device. They're on it 24/7. This is where everything is. And how can we not be there? Right. And for the most part in our industry, other than people promoting themselves, there was no like real content strategy for real estate agents, for mortgage lenders. And I was like, wow, this is like a huge thing. And normally, like, it's just so rare. Every time you come up with a cool idea, you would find that somebody's already executing on it, or the opportunity's already passed. Like, you never like come across something where it's like, wow, I'm a genius that could really take advantage of this. But this is the first time in my life where I was like, this is still, even today, 2020, going into 2021, it is such an untapped market. It's a complete land grab for anybody who wants to get involved in this. There's just so much opportunity. Literally, in today's market, with a small audience, every time I post, somebody DMs me with opportunity.
Yeah.
It may not turn into a deal, but more often now it's turning into business. And it's like, why would you not post? Why would you not create content for these platforms?
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is why would you not? And I think about, our town is outside of Nashville and Franklin, and there's several 100,000 people, right? That, like you said, they're online. Like, guys, everyone's online at this point. You can see how much is happening there, and to be able to show up and be relevant. And I love how you talk about that, is like, you observe people are on their phones, which people are actually making decisions on their phones too. And you look at, let's just call it what it is. In the mortgage space, Rocket has grown quite a bit, and you can see their share in a lot of states and a lot of our MSAs. And they happen to be number one, not just in total business, but even now in purchase. And so you go, wow, if consumers are now choosing to go with an online lender, why is that? And you start to dissect it, and you start to realize that frequency and that pattern interrupt of their marketing just shows up and shows up. And I love watching some of your content, because you come from a pretty cool value add educational piece. And I love that it's engaging. It's you, right? Like, I know if I bumped into you on the street, it's gonna be the same Neel that I saw on Instagram, right? And your posts. How have you kind of evolved with your content? Because I think for all of us, you maybe started somewhere, but I notice with guys like yourself and some others I follow, your content is also improving, right? And I think that's important. Do you have a strategy around that, or observations you've seen this year that has caused you to update your content, or is that just part of Neel's journey?
Yeah, I think two things there. So the first thing you talked about real quick was, people seeing the shift, right? And I think it's important for people in our industry and in the real estate industry to not listen to anecdotal advice. Let's look at data. Let's look at real data. And the thing is, people will say, in your brokerage or in your circle of originators or real estate agents, you'll see people will say, well, online's never going to be a threat to us because, it hasn't really affected us. And, our numbers are still great. But the thing, and also they'll say, well, they're never going to replace me because of X, Y, and Z. I provide great service and all this and stuff. And that may be true. But the problem is, if you look at a large sample of data, online has just continued to take share. Yeah. And so what happens is, it's taking a deal from you and you don't even know it. People don't realize it. And today they don't really know, because there's so much business and so much abundance for everyone. So people can ignore it, but like, as soon as markets slow down a little bit, you start to notice, hey, I'm losing a deal or two here. I'm losing a conversation. I'm losing some at-bats on the real estate and the mortgage side. And what am I going to do about that? And if you look at traffic to sites like Zillow, it has exploded. If you look at Quicken's volume, it has exploded. So you and I can talk all day about how Quicken is a terrible lender. I hear mortgage people talk about this all the time, that, they're the worst, and you're getting some guy in a call center. But it doesn't change the fact that the consumer is choosing them.
That's right.
More than they're choosing us. And so that may be wrong, but it's up to us to educate them. Hey, this is the difference between a local expert lender or a local expert realtor versus going to Zillow or going to Dhringa. Here's what you get by dealing with someone on the ground with expertise who understands and is going to give you a higher level of service. We can't blame the consumer for choosing when we didn't do our part. Quicken's doing their part. Zillow's doing their part. They're blasting the consumer at scale. And, we can compete. We just have to tell our story as well. So when I first started, I didn't realize that. So I was putting out content of like, hey, I'm the best lender. I was trying to compete just like they do, creating ads, like saying, hey, I'm the best and we have the best rates and service and lender. And what I found was, like, you can't really compete with a big brand like that, doing ads. We have to look at how are we different than them, and then lean into that. So how are we different than these big brands? We're different because you get me, you get my expertise, my level of service, my team's, willingness to take care of your transaction and make it important, right? So if you look at how many deals is Quicken handling, they're a great company to handle an insane amount of business, and that's awesome. But in our office, we may only handle 100 transactions this month. Right. Now that's a lot for a mortgage team, but for me and our consumers, it's like every deal gets the same level of care and importance to make sure that it gets done. Make sure if we hit a roadblock, we're going to overcome it. So I wanted to tell that story more. So I started doing that more on Facebook and LinkedIn and a little bit on Instagram. And then I noticed that then that was resonating more, explaining how we're different. And then I started to get into more of okay, now I've started putting out content. How do I make the content better? So then it's okay, let's get a better camera. Let's get a videographer. Let's get an editor after to make it cool and stuff. But I think people want to go to that first when really in the beginning, it's just about getting out there. Because really, right now, for example, I have an awesome setup in my office with the 4K camera and light and background, and it looks dope. Yeah. Problem is, I logged in, and it didn't work for this setup today. So I'm on my phone right now, right? That doesn't stop me from speaking and putting out good content. So there's no the quality is not the variable of success. You know what I mean?
Man, and I hope people hear that and rewind that back, because for a lot of us, there is that journey of you want to jump to the best equipment and have the coolest setup and all that. And it almost takes me back. I was watching this John Maxwell video, and there was actually a Gary Vaynerchuk from 2017 or 2018. Basically, the resounding message was get great at what you do, right? So you have to be good at what you do, because your brand's going to be built by what people say about you. And I love what you said was, hey, we have these 100 customers, give or take, that we're taking care of. They're getting this high level of service, this high level touch that we can take care of all of them. You got to be able to back it up. And so I love that journey that you're going through. Is a lot of people just want to brand and say, hey, I'm the best, or compete with the big guys. And a lot of times people are going to choose you because of you. And you just gave a real example of today we log in, hey, the camera's not working. Cool. We adapt. We go to a phone. Are you able to make that shift right away and take care of your customers' needs? And as I've seen some of your content, Neel, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. As you talked about, you changed your message to what made you different. And I think this is where people sometimes stumble is, let's talk about it. The real life is mortgages are somewhat a commodity, right? We can all price in all these ranges. We have products. They look very similar. They close very similar, all those things. How did you guys get clear on what your message would be that made you different? Did you sit around and kind of brainstorm with your team, or did you just, whiteboard that up? How did you guys decide that in the process?
Yeah. So I think I would just I started making a list of, things that we do that they don't do, or things that we do different than our competitors, and then create content around those things. And then I started making lists of things that my clients are asking me on a continual basis, problems I help them overcome. And those are pieces of content, right? And then I started leaning into the number one source of my business, which was builders and referral partners. How can I help them? And I really got into helping other people within our industry. And then it started to be other loan officers reaching out and saying, hey, dude, I like this. Give me, can we jump on a Zoom and you could help me out? And I was like, yeah, I don't, this is probably not the best use of my time, but because I'm so into it, let's jump on a call. Let's do that. And then that got me into, if you really helping other people within the industry, then that comes through in what you're doing. And then people will just refer to you more. So I kind of just stumbled into this is fun for me. I like helping people with creating content and different strategies. It's like a video game for me. Okay, we tried this piece of content and it worked. This one didn't work. Why did it work? Okay, well, it's because, you did this differently here or whatever. And so figuring out how to beat that game and doing better, and then posting that content and having it work out to business by accident, really. So you're not posting it to get the business, but by posting it consistently, people just start reaching out. And I think, people will probably be skeptical at first, which is just kind of in our DNA, because we're told to put out ads, close, what's your numbers today? What did you get today? And so this is a long-term strategy. So it took a while to change your mind to okay, this is something I'm going to commit to for the long term versus the short-term tactics that everyone's doing in our industry, but that's exactly why it works, right?
Yeah, and you're so far out on it. And I love what you said. And I hope people don't miss this. Is you talked about, if you're dealing with 100 customers or so at a time, if you're the loan officer that you have 10 customers at a time, find the commonalities. What are those problems that you're solving? That the questions those customers come and ask you. Real estate agents, builders consistently ask you a series of questions. And I remember I was actually going through with one of our team members last week, and they were wanting to start doing some content, right? And I was like, well, let's talk about what are the problems you're known for solving? Like, why do people come to you, right? So they come to Brian for certain things. They come to Neel for certain things. Why do they come to you? And if you start just writing that down, you'll get clarity. And I love how simplified that can be. Is what are the problems you're solving? And here would be something I would say to you. If you're not solving problems, we need to take a hard look at that, right? Because chances are you are. But if you're not solving problems, you're probably so far out on being a commodity that you're an order taker. And we've been seeing that in our industry this year. I really believe in 2020 was everybody's eligible for a refinance. Everybody's got great rates. Everybody can look like a superhero, but are you really solving problems? And I love you said long-term strategy. And this for me is like the mindset that differentiates the top 1%, top 2%, whatever you want to call, is you actually have a strategy long-term. Because we all know next year probably won't look exactly like 2020. It won't be as easy. There'll be a different set of challenges and different things. As you start looking out, your team's having a lot of success now. Are there things you're like, Brian, okay, this is where I see kind of the next blue ocean in a way of where opportunity could be, whether it's real estate agent, mortgage lender, those things?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a huge opportunity. And the only thing that limits me on capturing more of it is time, So for example, right now, the two things that the problems that I have to overcome are I need people, right? Yeah. I need good people to handle more business. And also I need to change to keep growing the source of business. So I follow, where's my business coming from, and keep growing that business that is direct to consumer, because that cuts out you being vulnerable to one channel, like buying leads from Zillow or one builder that refers to you. And then all of a sudden they have their own, like we had a big account with a national builder. They came out with their own lender, a JV partner that they partner with, and cut us, so you lose an account literally like that. And you can't be that vulnerable, right, to one source of business. So if we can eliminate that middleman and just go straight, now that's a huge, huge gain for us. So like what we're focusing on now is putting out more and more content that would help consumers, distributing that content. Now, posting is not going to do it anymore in today's world because the algorithm is so difficult. So how do you distribute content? And the one thing that I do that I think a lot of people in our industry don't is they're using third-party services, and they're using shortcuts to send content, to send like newsletters and emails to clients in their database.
Yep.
So we have a database of 10,000 people that we've ever done business with. Using that and spamming them every month is making them tune you out, right? Versus me sending an email out. I'll tell you what, like there's a video I made this year that's earned me well into multiples of six figures. And it was an email, it was a video that I created that says why the housing market won't crash. And this was in March, right? And It was me like maybe sticking my neck out a little bit, but what I was saying was we don't have enough inventory. The government has reacted very quickly versus the last crisis. It took them a long time to come up with these programs. They reacted like fast. I mean, it was like money coming out of the sky for a minute there, literally. Right? Yeah. So it was so fast. And I was like, okay, because of no inventory, housing is going to be elevated because you're going to be stuck at home. And because the government intervened so quick, yes, we're going to have 10% unemployment, but for the 90% who are employed, they're going to be out there transacting. Now, that video I posted on YouTube, and it was my best video on YouTube, and I got a ton of negative comments saying, how could you talk about this in a pandemic? And, all this stuff about like, where, people are dying and you're talking about real estate. And really what I was just trying to say was, look, these are the facts, these are the data points, and here's what's going to happen with housing. So I sent that video to my entire database, got a ton of engagement from both real estate agents, past clients, current clients. And then what happened was that video never says, call me. That video never says, hey, for all your mortgage needs, call 775-555. It never, there's no sales in it. It's just, hey guys, this is the information I want to share with you. Let me know if you have any questions. you know? And so by sharing that video and then following it up with another one and an update as we got further, people just started reaching out. You know, they DM you, they call you, and they're like, hey man, what do you think about this scenario? Or I'm thinking about buying a house. What do you think about this? And you just elevate yourself above the people. So for my market that was in Northern Nevada, not one person sent that video out. I was the only person that sent that video out. I was the only one who talked to the camera and said, here's what my thoughts are. Here's the facts. Everybody else sent out a spam email with a picture of a cupcake that says happy birthday. And they know it's spam. You know, they know that this is a corporate email, or, happy holidays and all that stuff. Like, it's great, but now it's working against you. You need to be like this. And so if somebody's like, well, I don't know how to make a long video like that, and I don't have the equipment, like, you could just take your phone and send out bomb, messages, right? I could send a message to Brian saying, what's up, Brian? Hey man, just wanted to wish you happy birthday. Like, rather than sending out the spam birthday one, right? That one is going to result in real relationships. The other one is going to work against you.
Man, I love that. And so yesterday was my wife's birthday, and we were actually talking about that. And I was asking her, because I'm kind of curious about learning, and she was telling me some of the messages she got from people she hasn't seen in years. And some of them posted pictures from grade school or middle school. People sent videos. Some of them sent personalized text. Never once did she say, oh, I got this list that looks like it was a generic, sent from a CRM, happy birthday, Brian, or happy birthday, Nicole, for her birthday. And I thought that's the consumer, right? So think about the people around you. And if you ask the questions, I think you've done your homework. What I love, and I want to go back to, is you talked about, you did the video, and it maybe was a little premature. Sounds like it wasn't. You got to strike sometimes and be different. If everybody's saying the same thing over here, you're just more noise in that funnel, and it doesn't work. But you stepped out. And I also notice when I've stepped out on those, it requires me to do my homework, to do my research, to make sure I'm ready. Because you're right, you probably got flooded with calls like, oh, Neel, why? Like, hey, what's up with this? Here's a scenario I have. What do you think about this market? What do you think about that? I found it required me every time I did that to level back up again.
Yeah.
If I'm putting that content out, I better be able to back it up, because when I get a phone call, we need to back up with substance. And so for you,
dude, you and Brian, real quick, sorry to interrupt you, but this is so meta. So we're on this live, right? A client of mine that I did a deal 4 years ago must have seen it or watching it. He just texted me and said, can you call me when we're done with the live?
I mean, right?
This is just an example of, like, people are shitting on this idea or concept of, like, oh, you guys are wasting your time. There's a lot of business to be closed. Well, why not block the time to do some content, right? It's only going to take 30 minutes or 40 minutes. What else are you doing? And what's the most efficient way to do the content, right? It's like, would I rather, do the thing which my original coaching program told me to do, which was get in the conference room and make your 20 calls and get, 18 voicemails that nobody's ever going to listen to, and maybe connect with 2 people and they're busy and you didn't catch them at the right time? Or should I just create some content for them and send it to them and let them consume it when they have the time, right? Man. And maybe they miss this one, but they're going to see the next one. They're going to see the next one. Yeah. So it's just that consistent nature of it, and it works. I'm telling you, like, without a doubt, it works.
How crazy is that? And I was having this conversation with Steve Sims last week too, and he was talking about, we got to sharpen our tools and our axe and everything off the battlefield so that we're ready when we go on the battlefield for things. And I'm thinking about that as you're talking. It's like, he gave this great example of, he'll go through his phone, and let's say we'll take people with the name starts with A, and he'll just call those people. And that's one strategy he has, but it's very personal that he has there. But what I've found with content is you shift, and I've seen this with yours, your content can live forever, right? You post it out there, you can reuse the content. So those of you that are thinking, wow, Neel and Brian, that's great. You guys must have all this time in the world. No, we don't. We have the same 24 hours you do. But what I've learned on content is the more I put myself out there, like these live podcasts, man, Neel, I could tell you how many people laughed at me and were hating on, like, why are you doing a show? Why are you doing this? I'm like, I have a vision for something bigger that's going to make an impact, bringing guests on, and to do this. There's referrals. Yes, they happen as a byproduct of this every time. But your content will live forever. Your voicemail, guess what? It's getting deleted. Like, it's a one-time, you're in and out. So let's talk about some content strategies, because I see you doing content today. For those people out there, and I'm sure you've seen Gary Vee's piece, like creating multiple content off of that. Do you guys kind of implement that strategy where I know you've got some videographers, some people come in, and you do some really, some well-produced content. I don't think it's over the top with like all the crazy stuff we see.
Yep.
But you can reuse that, right? I mean, that's something I think people miss out on is, to your point earlier, you solve problems. Well, guess what? The problem someone has today with you, probably in 6 months, there's another group of customers that have the same problem.
Exactly. So I think you would, yeah. So I would do, for people watching or listening to this after the fact, like, yeah, I've had people hop on and be like, hey man, only 8 or 10 people saw your live, big deal. Well, no, this is going to go on the podcast. This is going to go on YouTube.
Right.
Then over time, many people will see it. And in a world where like people are so caught up in vanity metrics of like, oh, this video went viral and got 1 million views. You don't need anywhere near that, because when somebody watches a piece of content like this, or when somebody watches my video about the housing market, 2020 predictions or how to navigate the housing market, if they watch 2 or 3 minutes of that video, that is gold. Like that is a deep connection with somebody to sit there and watch. I don't know if you've noticed this. Until I started doing video, I never realized how long 1 minute was. Right? Like it's a long. Like if you watch somebody talk for a minute and it's not engaging, you're off. You click and move on. So for someone to sit there and watch long form content, or even a minute or 2 minutes of what you're saying, that is more valuable than any phone call, voicemail, cold call, email, mailer, anything that you've ever done before. So now you've got a deep connection with that person. They trust you. They view you in a certain level, right? Yeah. So I would just say to look at, for content strategy for anybody listening, there's, you can do pillar content, which is what we're doing right now, which is long form, and then just go through that pillar content. Yeah. And in the midst of this conversation, there's going to be 30-second, 20-second clips where you said something, Brian said something, whatever, Neel said something, and you cut those clips, and those will be short clips for social. And then if somebody wants to watch the full video, then go to the podcast, listen to it, then go to the video, YouTube, and watch the whole video. And then for consumers content, I would just look at Google Trends. Yeah. There's this website called answerthepublic.com. And if you go to this website, it'll say, you type in your field, like it could be mortgage, it could be home mortgage, it could be different variations. For real estate, it could be real estate market, it could be housing market, different things like that. And it will show you, again, going back to let's use real data, it will show you the terms that consumers are searching for right now, the most searched terms. And that's how I got the video for the housing market, because the most searched terms at that time in March were, as we saw the pandemic on the news, the most searched terms were housing bubble 2.0. How is housing going to crash? What's going to happen to home values? Because people thought it was going to be like the last recession, but no recessions are the same. So I wanted to put out that content. So look at that and see what people are searching for, and then create content around those things. So if you put in mortgages, there'll probably be 20 or 30 things that real consumers in your market are looking for, and they're Googling this. So you don't have to wonder, is this video going to do well? It's going to answer the questions that they're looking for.
Love that. Give the website again in case people missed it.
One is Google Trends, and the other one is answerthepublic.com. And you can just put in the keyword, and it will give you the topics for your video. And you could pay for premium and get even more depth, but these two sites are free. So I went there and found free information on creating the video. So, and the crazy thing is this is, Brian, this is stuff that's all available online. I'm not a genius. I just looked, Google stuff at night and look up stuff and figure it out on my own. But any one of us can do it. But I'll tell you right now, no one in your market is doing this. Yeah. No one in my market is doing this because they're all busy making money. Yep. So you talked about like what to learn from different crises, different market cycles. Yeah. And the one thing I did learn was I've been through like 2 or 3 of these kind of booms in real estate and in lending. And every time one came up and I got through it at the end, I said, if that ever happens to me again, I'm going to do it different. Yes. And then the next one would come and I would do it the exact same, Yeah. And I was like, and what happens is you end the boom period with a little bit more money in the bank, but you're in the same spot business wise, or even worse because you didn't nurture any relationships. So like, if you took this time, this boom period that we've been given, and took some of that time and money and invested it in your content strategy, you're going to separate when the market slows down just a little bit, meaning rates go up just a half point. You're going to separate from everybody coming out of it because you're maybe the one of a few that invested in marketing during the time when everybody else was invested in short-term making money strategy.
Dude, I love that. So I actually had a debate with a fellow loan officer at another company last week. And I said, I think there's going to be a shift. And in 3 to 5 years, I said, I want us to look back, and the people that invest today in only, let's call them Zillow leads or whatever form you're buying those from, right? The people that are investing there versus the other camp, like guys like you and myself and some others out there, we're investing in the relationship game and content building game of, I'm creating content. Obviously, I'm spending money to make sure that it's quality and upping my game. I think those are going to be the relationships that last, because I look at it as like, it's very transactional. I'm buying a lead, I hope to convert. But my content, to your point earlier, is going to live and have a life of its own and be repurposed. I think there's going to be two camps out of this. The ones that figure out I can build something in more of a legacy long-term, and those that just keep playing the short-term game of, like you said, you lost a large builder. I think they're only focused on the one in front of them versus this massive opportunity that could exist if they invest, right? And look, none of this stuff is free, but I would challenge the notion, if you're spending money in other areas like lead gen like that, are there other areas that are more fruitful, that are more authentic to you? And I'm like you, where, I mean, even in recruiting in that space, I didn't want to sit around and make 20 calls a day. I wanted to connect up with people and engage with them and find new ways to attract the right people that I wanted on the team. And so I shifted and went through a period where people laughed and thought it was funny. And I was like, you'll be laughing when our team continues to grow and we hire the best.
Yeah. And you talk about recruiting. That was one of the problems I face now, finding good people, and running ads doesn't do it.
No.
Spamming people on LinkedIn doesn't do it. But let me give you a real example, Brian, of what just happened to me. So I post, videos all the time. I post them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So one day, and the reason why I do that is because I've got lines everywhere, and then you don't know where you're going to catch somebody. And, videos that got very little engagement or very little views have actually turned into business because it was just catching somebody on a platform that I wouldn't have ordinarily seen them on.
Sure.
So if the video works in one place, more than likely it'll work in multiple places. So what happened was, one day I came home from work and two people had asked me during the week, "Hey Neel, do you guys just do a lot of videos there, or do you close any business?" And I was like, dude, I get this question all the time. And let me just show people, like, okay, yes, we do a lot of content, but my primary thing is closing business, just like you guys do every day. So let me show you my CRM, what we've closed year to date. And I showed my volume for the year, and that we're crushing it and we're getting things done. And we're really happy about all the families that we helped this year. And on top of that, we also did a lot of content, right? I didn't take my eye off the ball. So I posted that, and I just did that at my home with my phone at like 9:30 at night. And I posted it to Facebook, and it didn't get much views. The next morning at 8 a.m, I get a text from another person who's in the industry. And she says, "Neel, we need to talk." And I was like, okay. And we get on the phone and find out that she's having a lot of struggles at her current organization. And she wants to leave. Also, she has a team of operations people with her that would come, that could help as well. And it turned into, she's here now working in the office 2 months later. Like, if I didn't post that video, would I have connected? And so what happened was, she said that it was the first video in her feed that morning. Nice. It just landed. It's just the algorithm, it's just luck of the draw. If she woke up 10 minutes later, maybe I wouldn't have seen her. But then I would have had to. So it's just the repetitive, post it, share your thoughts, share what you're doing, share success stories, share business stories, share anything, right? Because you never know when you're going to catch somebody. And I never once said in there, "Hey, I didn't ask for anything. All I did was just explain things." So I think like that strategy, that's a perfect example of like, okay, now I've created hopefully a decade-long or more relationship with somebody that started with one video.
That's killer. And that's happening out there. So for all the people that are skeptical or wondering, like, is that really happening? There's so many people that we've brought on our team, especially during this season where we're not traveling, right? So we're not really, as a company, we're not traveling to markets and all that. So it's hard for me. I used to rely on a lot of loan officers that would do the face-to-face coffees with realtors and all. Like, I used to go meet with loan officers and branch managers and teams. Well, now I'm on Zoom, I'm on this, but I also realized I had to up my content. Just like you posted something that would attract the right person to you, we had to get clear on our avatar, who's the right person, who are we looking for, and put messages out. Like you said, you're casting lines and you're trying to connect with people just the way they want to be connected with, where it's not a call that they have to make a decision with. They can review the content and go, "Yeah, I like that Neel guy. Like I could see myself maybe working with him."
Yeah. And like when you get these calls in the middle of your day, and you're in it, you've got people, you're behind on emails, the phone's ringing, and some guy cuts through on your cell and says, "Hey, this is Joe with XYZ Lending. I'd love to chat with you about this." And I'm like, I'm almost a little bit angry. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's almost like you want to put a no solicitation sign on. But what if that guy, instead of cold calling all day, what if he took that time and energy and he just showed people what it's like to work where he's you guys, the thing that's cool about Loan Depot is you guys show people what the culture is like. You show people, how you guys are crushing it. You're putting up great numbers, but at the same time, you really value your people. Like there was a guy in your organization, Chris, and he continually posts stuff to the operations staff of like, dude, we couldn't have done this without our team. I want to thank everybody. And maybe those posts don't engage that much, but I see them. Other people see them. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like that stuff, the repeated, it's over and over. And then, you click with those people. You're like, okay, these guys seem like good guys, and they seem like good people. They're doing good things. And I want to work with people like that. That's how recruiting should work. Not like the spamming, I get these emails, you probably get them too on LinkedIn, and they just go straight for the sale. It's like, hey, loved your profile. And it's like a spam thing. And you just delete. You don't even what are these guys doing? And then the few people that do respond, what is the quality of those responses,
Yeah. Man.
So I just think like people need to change that. And I'm really shocked that in today's world, people are still using the same tactics from 10, 20, 30 years ago. They haven't changed at all.
Yeah, I look at that and it just creates more opportunity for the guys that if you're listening out there and you're willing to make that change. I know Neel talks about it a lot. I engage with a lot of people offline that don't work for us. Maybe one day they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. But if we can change the culture, and I always look at Dave Savage and I talk about this a lot, is like being a change agent. Is I want our industry to be viewed as the professionals we are, for people to understand that we care about what we do and the service we provide, and we want to be the best at what we do. And so part of that is we got to show up. And I can't thank you enough. I know we could go on, but I love how you show up and add value in what you're doing, man. I'm a fan, and I tell people all the time, like, we don't all have to wear the same jersey to cheer each other on and to say, let's go do the right thing in the industry, because for so long, so many, and still today, I would say aren't doing it the way that we believe it should be done in a modern way, and to really serve and value people. And dude, you're doing that. So kudos.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And when you talk about helping other people within the industry, what has it done? What does it do for you? So many times I'll reach out to somebody and say, hey, I just filled this processing position. I don't have a need, but I came across this gal. She's excellent. Maybe you guys could use her. Like maybe you have an opportunity for her. And then I could connect somebody with the right person. Or how many times people reach out to me who aren't licensed in our state, and they're a regional lender, and they're like, hey, could you take care of this client? I've been following you for a while, and we share business back and forth. Maybe I'm not in the market that they are. And also, hey, let me introduce you to this guy, or hey, let me do this. Like the real value is in the relationships, like you talked about, Brian. And it's like, it's not always about this short-term money game. It's about long-term. So if anybody's listening to this, if they could shift to that long-term mindset, it doesn't take forever to start paying off. Like it will start paying in the first 6 to 12 months. But once you get it, and you're like, you can't imagine going back to like the short-term tactics anymore. You're just forever changed.
That's so true, man. That's a good way to end, is really thinking about that long-term strategy. And you're right, like all of us have started somewhere, but you're right. Once you get that moving and grooving, and it's like, it's fun. And I think that's what we all need to, I think Simon Sinek says it is, create this world that people show up to work and come home and feel like they've contributed and valued, and come home and they make a better life for themselves and their families. And if we all do that. So, well, Neel, let's do this, my friend. Where can people find you on social? Because obviously you're out there a lot of places. Where can they find you and connect up on your journey?
So you can my handle's right here on the bottom of the screen. That's my Instagram handle. You can reach me there, DM me anytime, I'll respond. And then I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And if you just Google me, you should see a full page of content. So you'll find me.
I love it. Well, make sure you follow along with Neel. Make sure you go check out, if you missed some of the episode, rewind it back, share it with your friends and those that you think would add value, especially mortgage and real estate, but also think any other sales could benefit from this. And guys, when you go on, make sure you like and subscribe at The Brian Covey Show, briancovey.com. We've had some tremendous guests like Neel that have dropped a ton of value, and it's all free for you. So make sure you go in there. You'll find some people that you connect up with, that your story may align with theirs. And every week we're trying to bring you something of value so you can connect up with people that are on the same journey as you and realize their struggles and what they've gone through and adversity, you probably have similar, right? And you can do that. So we want to bring out the greatness in all of us and just make the world a better place. So Neel, thank you for joining. And I know we're going to have you back on soon. Keep crushing it. Finish out this crazy 2020 year. And I know you guys are going to finish strong.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, bud.
Subscribe, rate, and review The Brian Covey Show today. Go to briancovey.com.